Kethvar stood in the transport bay, watching the humans board their ship. His forearms crossed over his chest as he studied these strange new allies. The Vorthak Empire had fought wars across 3 galaxies, but they had never worked with creatures quite like these. The humans were small. Even their tallest soldier barely reached Kethvar's shoulder. Their skin was soft and pink, not the hard gray scales that protected Vorthak warriors. They carried weapons that looked like toys compared to the massive plasma cannons his people used. Worst of all, they seemed to laugh and joke constantly, as if war was some kind of game. Lieutenant Deho approached him first. The human had dark hair and calm eyes, but he looked more like a clerk than a warrior. When he spoke, his voice was quiet and steady. "You must be Kethvar," Deho said. "I'm the squad leader for this mission. My team is ready to work with you." Kethvar looked down at the small human. In his own language, this creature would be called soft shell, something to be protected, not something that could protect others. But the Alliance had ordered cooperation, so he would follow orders. "I have fought in over 300 battles," Kethvar said. "I have seen entire worlds burn. What experience do your people have with real war?" Deho smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Enough." The other humans gathered around them. Corporal He-Jin was even smaller than Deho, with gentle hands that looked better suited for healing than fighting. Private Jin-Woo could not stop grinning and making jokes, even during the mission briefing. Sergeant Boram spoke very little, but her eyes were always moving, always watching. Captain Subin commanded from the ship's bridge, her voice coming through their communication devices. Their mission was simple. A research station on the planet Kepler 442b had sent a distress signal. The deadly devourers were coming to that system, and everyone on the station needed to be evacuated before the alien parasites arrived. It should take no more than 6 hours. "The devourers are dangerous," Kethvar warned the humans as their ship approached the station. "They eat everything living. They turn worlds into empty shells. Your people have never faced anything like them." Jin-Woo laughed. "We've faced some pretty nasty things before." Kethvar shook his head. These humans did not understand. The Devourers had destroyed entire Vorthak battle fleets. They reproduced by implanting eggs in living hosts. They could not be reasoned with or frightened. They existed only to consume. As their ship docked with the research station, Kethvar noticed something odd. The station was too quiet. No one came to greet them at the airlock. The lights flickered on and off. Strange scratching sounds echoed through the metal walls. "Something is wrong," he said. Deho nodded. "Yes, the distress signal has been broadcasting for 3 weeks. We're not the first to hear it." They moved through the station corridors in formation. Kethvar took point, his plasma rifle ready. The humans spread out behind him, their smaller weapons raised. The scratching sounds grew louder. In the first laboratory they found, everything was destroyed. Computer screens were smashed, equipment was scattered across the floor. Dark stains covered the walls. But worst of all, they found containers that had once held something alive. The containers were broken open from the inside. "What were they keeping here?" He-Jin asked, kneeling beside one of the broken containers. Kethvar felt his blood run cold as he read the labels. Devourer larvae. They were experimenting on baby devourers. The scratching sound suddenly stopped. The station became completely silent. "We need to leave," Kethvar said. "Now." That was when they heard the screaming. It came from deeper in the station, where the human researchers might still be alive. The sound was full of pain and terror, Without hesitation, Deho started moving toward the screams. "This way!" "No," Kethvar said, grabbing the human's arm. "We cannot save them. The Devourers are already here. We must retreat." Deho looked up at him with those calm eyes. "We don't leave people behind." Before Kethvar could argue, something burst through the wall beside them. It was the size of a large dog, with 6 legs and teeth like broken glass. A young devourer, newly hatched and hungry. Kethvar raised his weapon, but Jin Woo was faster. The young human's rifle fired 3 quick shots, each one hitting perfectly. The creature dropped dead. "Nice shooting," Boram said quietly. More scratching sounds came from all around them. The walls, the ceiling, the floor. They were surrounded. "How many larvae were in those containers?" Deho asked. Kethvar counted the broken containers he could see. "At least 50, maybe more." The humans looked at each other. No fear showed on their faces, only calculation. They were doing math in their heads, figuring out how to fight 50 deadly creatures in a space station with nowhere to run. "Hey, Jin, medical supplies in the emergency kit?" Deho asked. "Standard combat load," she replied. "Boram explosives?" "Enough for the mission parameters," Boram said. Jin Woo. "Ammunition." 300 rounds plus backup power cells. Kethvar stared at them. They were not panicking. They were not calling for retreat. They were making plans to fight creatures that had killed trained Vorthak warriors. The first real attack came from above. 3 Devourers dropped from air vents in the ceiling, moving faster than Kethvar's eyes could follow. He managed to kill one with his plasma rifle, but the other 2 landed among the humans. What happened next made Kethvar question everything he thought he knew about these soft creatures. Heijin, the gentle medic, grabbed a devourer that was twice her size and drove a surgical knife into its brain with perfect precision. She did not scream or panic. She just found the exact spot where the creature's nervous system was most vulnerable and ended its life in 2 seconds. The third devourer grabbed Jin Woo's leg with its teeth. Instead of crying out, the young human calmly placed his rifle against the creature's head and fired. Then he checked his leg wound and reported, "Minor puncture. No arterial damage." "Move," Deho said. "We find the survivors and get out." As they ran through the station corridors, fighting more devourers at every turn, Kethvar began to understand something disturbing. The humans were not brave in the way Vorthak warriors were brave. Vorthak fought with honor, with glory, with the knowledge that a good death in battle would be remembered. The humans fought like machines. They calculated angles and ammunition counts. They used their medical knowledge to kill more efficiently. They worked together with the smooth coordination of a single organism. When they finally reached the research section where the screaming had come from, they found 5 human scientists barricaded in a storage room. The researchers were alive but terrified. "Thank God," one of them sobbed. "We thought no one was coming." "We're here now," Deho said simply. "We're getting you out." As they prepared to move the civilians to safety, Kethvar realized something that chilled him more than any devourer could. These humans had never doubted they would succeed. They had walked into a station full of deadly creatures, outnumbered and outgunned, and they had simply assumed they would find a way to win. They were not warriors. They were something else entirely, something that scared him more than he wanted to admit. The scratching sounds were getting louder again. More devourers were coming, and the humans were already making new plans, as calm and steady as if they were discussing the weather. Kethvar began to wonder which species was really the most dangerous. The evacuation was supposed to be simple. Get the 5 human researchers to the docking bay, board their ship, and leave before more devourers arrived. But as they moved through the station corridors, Captain Subin's voice crackled through their communications with bad news. Long-range sensors showed devourer ships in the system, she reported. A full hive fleet, 17 vessels and growing. Kethvar felt his heart sink. A hive fleet meant thousands of adult devourers, plus their massive breeding ships. The research station's distress signal had been broadcasting for weeks. Every devourer in 3 systems would have heard it. How long until they reach us? Deho asked, helping one of the injured researchers walk. 4 hours, Subin replied. Maybe less. That was when the explosion started. Something was hitting the station's outer hull over and over. The lights went out completely, leaving only emergency power. Red warning lights flashed in the darkness. Boarding pods, Kethvar said grimly. They're sending adult devourers directly onto the station. The researchers started crying. One of them, an older woman with gray hair, grabbed Deho's arm. We're all going to die, aren't we? Deho looked at her with those calm eyes. No, we're not. He said it with such simple certainty that even Kethvar almost believed him. They reached a main corridor that led toward the docking bay when the first adult devourer found them. It was nothing like the larvae they had been fighting. This creature was the size of a ground vehicle, with armor plates that could stop plasma fire and claws that could cut through metal. Its 6 red eyes focused on the group, and it let out a sound like metal being torn apart. Kethvar raised his heavy plasma rifle and fired. The energy blast hit the creature's chest and left only a small scorch mark. The devourer charged. Down! Boram shouted. Everyone dropped to the floor as she threw something small and round. The explosion that followed shook the entire corridor. When the smoke cleared, the devourer was dead, but the hallway was half collapsed. Are you hurt? Heijin asked Boram, who was bleeding from several cuts. I'm fine, Boram said, but Kethvar could see she was not fine. The explosion had been too close. She had used a grenade designed for open battlefields in an enclosed space, risking everyone's lives. Why did you do that? He asked. Boram looked at him as if the question made no sense. It was the fastest way to kill it. They had to take a different route to the docking bay now. The station's layout was complex, with many levels and branching corridors. As they walked, Jinwoo stayed at the rear of the group, watching for more devourers. His earlier jokes and laughter were gone. He moved like a hunter, every step careful and quiet. How many people live on your world? Kethvar asked Deho as they helped the researchers navigate around debris. About 8 billion, Deho replied. And how many are soldiers? Depends how you count. Maybe 50 million active military. But everyone does some kind of service. Kethvar was puzzled. Service? Emergency response? Disaster relief? Medical training? We figure everyone should know how to help when things go wrong. Things go wrong often on your world? Deho was quiet for a moment. Often enough? They reached a junction where 3 corridors met. According to the station map, they could go left toward the main docking bay, right toward emergency escape pods, or straight toward the station's central hub. That was when they heard Jinwoo scream. Kethvar spun around to see the young human being dragged into a side passage by something huge and dark. Jinwoo's rifle was firing rapidly, the flashes lighting up a creature even larger than the one Boram had killed. Without thinking, Kethvar started to follow, but Boram grabbed his arm. No, she said. "I've got this." She pulled out another grenade. But this one was different. Larger. The kind used to destroy vehicles. "You'll kill him too," Kethavar protested. Boram's face was completely calm. "Maybe, but if I don't, that thing will kill all of us." She activated the grenade and threw it into the passage where Jinwoo had disappeared. Then she grabbed one of the researchers and started running toward the escape pods. "Move!" she shouted. The explosion was massive. It shook the entire station and knocked everyone to the ground. Part of the ceiling collapsed. Emergency alarms started screaming. And then, impossibly, they heard Jinwoo's voice from the smoke and debris. I'm okay. The ugly thing is dead, but I think I lost some hair." He emerged from the wreckage, covered in green blood and dust, but alive. The creature was dead behind him, blown apart by the explosion. "How did you survive that?" Kethavar asked. Jinwoo grinned, but it was not his usual happy grin. "I found a strong doorframe and got lucky." But Kethavar saw the truth in the young human's eyes. Jinwoo had not expected to survive. He had accepted his death the moment that creature grabbed him. The survival was just a bonus. They continued toward the escape pods, but the station was falling apart around them. More boarding pods were hitting the hull. The artificial gravity was failing in some sections. Worst of all, they could hear the sounds of many large creatures moving through the corridors behind them. "The pods are damaged," Subin reported through their communications. "Hull breach in that section. You'll have to reach the main docking bay." But when they got to the main docking bay, they found it was not empty. 5 adult devourers were feeding on the remains of the station's crew. These creatures were even larger than the ones they had fought, with thicker armor and longer claws. "We can't fight all of them," Kethavar said. "Not with the civilians." The researchers were terrified, hiding behind containers and crying quietly. The oldest woman was praying in a language Kethavar did not recognize. "Yes, we can," Daeho said simply. He turned to his team. "Hey Jin, medical station. Bo-Ram, high ground. Jinwoo, suppression fire. I'll draw them toward the center." "That's suicide," Kethavar said. Daeho looked at him with those calm eyes again. "No, that's just Tuesday." The humans moved into position with smooth efficiency. Jin found a medical station and began preparing something from her kit. Bo-Ram climbed onto a cargo container for a better angle. Jinwoo took cover behind a pillar and checked his weapon. And Daeho walked out into the open, directly toward 5 creatures that could tear him apart in seconds. "Hey!" he shouted at the devourers. "Over here!" All 5 creatures turned toward him and charged. What happened next was the most terrifying display of coordinated violence Kethavar had ever seen. Jinwoo's rifle fired continuously, not trying to kill the creatures, but forcing them to move in certain directions. Bo-Ram's explosives detonated in precise sequences, creating barriers and driving the devourers toward specific areas. And Jin, the gentle medic, had filled syringes with something that made the creatures scream when it touched them. But it was Daeho who horrified Kethavar the most. The small human moved between the massive creatures like he was dancing, always just fast enough to avoid their claws, always positioning himself exactly where his team needed him to be. He was using himself as bait, calculating how close he could get to death without actually dying. When the last devourer fell, Daeho was bleeding from a dozen cuts, but he was still standing. He walked over to check on the researchers as if nothing unusual had happened. "Everyone okay?" he asked. The gray-haired woman stared at him with wide eyes. How are you people still alive? Deho thought about it for a moment. Practice, he said. As they boarded their ship and prepared to leave the dying station, Kethvar watched the humans tend to their wounds and calm the researchers. They moved with the same steady efficiency they had shown in battle. No celebration, no relief, just quiet competence. Your people fight strangely, he told Deho. How do your people fight? Deho asked. With honor, with glory, for the memory of our ancestors and the pride of our clans, Deho nodded. We fight for Tuesday. I don't understand. Tuesday is just another day. People get up, go to work, have dinner with their families, nothing special. But if something tries to take that away... Deho's voice got very quiet. We fight for Tuesday. As their ship pulled away from the research station, Kethvar watched it explode behind them. The Devourer hive fleet was already moving toward other targets, other worlds to consume. But he was not thinking about the Devourers anymore. He was thinking about creatures who fought for ordinary days and quiet dinners, who threw grenades at their own friends to save them, who walked into certain death as casually as walking to work. The humans scared him, and they were supposed to be on his side. The rescued researchers were safe aboard their ship, but Captain Subin had more bad news waiting for them. The Devourer hive fleet was not just passing through the system. They were setting up a breeding operation. Long-range scans show they're building nursery ships, Subin reported from the bridge. This system has 3 inhabited worlds. If the Devourers establish a breeding base here, they'll consume everything within 50 light years. Kethvar studied the tactical display. 17 Devourer ships, including 3 massive breeding vessels. Against that, the Alliance had their single scout ship and whatever reinforcements could arrive in the next few days. We need to call for a full battle fleet, he said. This is beyond our mission parameters. The nearest fleet is 6 days away, Subin replied. The nursery ships will be operational in 2 days. Once they start producing larvae, this system is lost. Deho was sitting quietly in the corner, cleaning his rifle. He had not said much since they left the research station. Now he looked up with those calm eyes. There's another option, he said. We go back. Back where? Kethvar asked. The research station. It's still got a working reactor, and the Devourers are using it as a base. If we can overload the reactor... That's insane, Kethvar said. The station is full of adult Devourers now, hundreds of them. And even if we could reach the reactor, someone would have to stay behind to trigger the overload. Yes, Deho said simply. The other humans were listening now. Jin Woo stopped joking. Boram looked up from her explosives. He-Jin put down her medical supplies. They were all looking at Deho with the same expression. They were going to do it. Kethvar could see it in their faces. These creatures were actually going to fly back into a system full of deadly aliens and try to destroy a space station with a nuclear explosion. This is madness, he said. Even if the plan works, whoever triggers the reactor will die. There's no escape from that kind of explosion. We know, He-Jin said quietly. Your people have families, lives to return to. Why would you throw that away? Jinwoo answered this time. Because if we don't, a lot more people will lose their families. Captain Subin's voice came through the communications. I've been running calculations. If we approach from the dark side of the station and use the debris field for cover, we might be able to dock without being detected. But the reactor control room is in the station's core. You'd have to fight through at least 12 levels of Devourers. How long to set up the overload? Deho asked. 20 minutes if everything goes perfectly, 40 minutes if there are complications. And how long to get out afterward? Subin was quiet for a long moment. You can't. The explosion will destroy everything within 50 kilometers. There's no ship fast enough to escape that radius in time. Kethvar waited for the humans to change their minds, to realize that the plan was suicide, to find another way that did not require someone to die. Instead, Deho started stripping unnecessary equipment from his gear. I'll need basic tools, a portable computer, and maybe 2 magazines of ammunition. Everything else is just extra weight. No, Kethvar said. If anyone stays behind, it should be me. I'm a Vorthak warrior. This kind of sacrifice is what we train for. Deho looked at him with what might have been kindness. You don't know how to operate human reactor systems. Then teach me. It would take days to learn properly. We don't have days. Boram spoke up. I know reactor systems too, and I'm better with explosives if something goes wrong. So do I, Heijin added. Medical training includes emergency reactor protocols. Jinwoo raised his hand. I've got basic engineering, I could probably figure it out. They were volunteering, all of them, fighting over who got to die. Kethvar felt something cold settle in his stomach. This was not how warriors behaved. Warriors fought for glory, for honor, for the chance to be remembered. These humans were discussing suicide like they were deciding who would take the night watch. There has to be another way, he said. Maybe, Deho agreed. But this way works, and we're running out of time. Captain Subin came down from the bridge to join the discussion. She was older than the others, with gray hair and steady hands. When she spoke, everyone listened. I've been thinking about the approach, she said. If we're lucky, we can get to the station without being detected. But getting back to the reactor room will require someone to stay at the docking bay and hold it open. Otherwise, you'll be trapped even before you reach the core. I'll do that, Kethvar said quickly. I can hold a position better than any of you, Subin nodded. And we'll need someone to monitor communications and guide the team through the station. The layout has probably changed since the Devourers moved in. That's me, Jinwoo said. I'm good with computers, which leaves reactor duty, Deho said. I'll handle that. No, Boram said. Reactor work is my specialty. You should lead the team getting there. I outrank you, Deho replied. Rank doesn't matter when you're dead, Boram said calmly. They were arguing about who got to sacrifice themselves. Kethvar had seen many strange things in his long military career, but this was something new, something that made his skin crawl. Stop, he said. Just stop. Listen to yourselves. You're planning your own deaths like it's a work assignment. Heijin looked at him with those gentle eyes. What else should we do? Find another way. Call for more ships. Wait for reinforcements. And let 3 planets full of people get eaten. While we wait, Jinwoo asked, it's not your responsibility to save everyone. Deho stood up and walked over to where Kethvar was sitting. When he spoke, his voice was very quiet. Yes, it is. Why? Because we can. Subin pulled up a holographic display of the research station. We go in 4 hours. That gives us time to plan the approach and set charges at key structural points. If the reactor overload doesn't work, we'll try to collapse the station into the Devourer ships. More suicide plans, Kethvar muttered. No, Subin said. Backup suicide plans. As the humans began planning their attack, Kethvar found himself watching them with growing horror. They discussed death with the same calm efficiency they used for everything else. They calculated blast radii and estimated survival times. They wrote messages to people they would never see again. Jin-Woo wrote to someone called Mom and Dad. Hai-Jin wrote to her sister. Bo-Ram wrote to a person named Little Brother. Dae-Ho wrote the longest message to someone he called My Dear Wife. "What are you writing?" Kethvar asked. "Letters," Dae-Ho said, "in case we don't make it back." "You just planned the entire mission around the idea that you won't make it back." "That's different. Planning assumes the worst case. Letters are for the people we love." Kethvar read over Dae-Ho's shoulder. The letter was simple and honest. It talked about ordinary things. How proud he was of his wife's new job. How he missed her cooking. How he hoped she would remember to fix the broken window in their kitchen. "You write about windows," Kethvar said. "You're about to die fighting space monsters and you write about windows." Dae-Ho smiled, and for the first time it was a completely happy smile. "That window has been broken for 6 months. She keeps saying she'll call someone to fix it, but she never remembers. If I don't come back, maybe she'll finally do it. Then every time she looks at it, she'll think of me." The humans finished their letters and sealed them in case the ship's computer needed to send them automatically. Then they began checking their weapons and equipment with the same careful attention they gave everything else. Kethvar realized he was no longer worried about the Devourers. Creatures that ate planets were terrible, but they were still just animals following their nature. The humans were something else. They made choices that no sane creature would make. They loved so deeply that it made them dangerous. They calculated the value of their own lives and decided other people mattered more. They terrified him. And in 4 hours, he was going to follow them into hell. The research station looked like a different place when they returned. The Devourers had been busy. Organic material covered the walls like a second skin. Strange pods hung from the ceiling, pulsing with internal light. The air tasted wrong, full of chemicals that made Kethvar's throat burn. But worst of all were the sounds. Scratching, clicking, and something that might have been singing in a language no one was meant to understand. "Nursery construction is more advanced than we thought," Captain Subin reported through their communications. "They're not just breeding here. They're changing the station into something else." Dae-Ho led the team through corridors that had become alien tunnels. The metal floors were covered with a soft, spongy material that moved under their feet. The walls had openings that had not been there before, passages that led deeper into the station's transformed interior. Motion sensors show at least 200 adult Devourers, Jin-Woo whispered, checking his portable scanner. "And something else. Something big in the central core." "The Queen," Kethvar said grimly. "They've brought a brood queen to oversee the nursery construction." He had heard about brood queens but never seen one. Ancient creatures the size of buildings, capable of producing thousands of larvae in a single day. If a queen had claimed this station, the entire system was already lost. "Does that change the plan?" Hai-Jin asked. "No," Dae-Ho said simply. "It just makes it more important." They moved deeper into the station, following maintenance tunnels that the Devourers had not yet discovered. The humans moved like ghosts, each step carefully placed, each breath controlled. Even Jin-Woo had stopped making his usual jokes. Kethvar found himself studying how they fought. When they encountered small groups of Devourers, the humans did not attack with the fierce joy that Vorthak warriors showed in battle. They killed efficiently, quietly, with no wasted motion or energy. Hai-Jin used her medical knowledge to find the fastest way to stop each creature's heart. Bo-Ram placed her explosives with mathematical precision. Jin-Woo's shots never missed their targets, and Dae-Ho moved through the fighting like he was conducting music, directing his team with small gestures and quiet words. 30 degrees left, hey Jin. Jin-Woo, high target, 2 shots. Bo-Ram shaped charge, 5-second delay. They were not warriors. They were something more frightening. They were professionals. It took them 2 hours to reach the station's lower levels, where the reactor was located. But as they got closer to their target, the station became more alien. The walls moved like living things. Strange lights pulsed in patterns that hurt to look at. And everywhere, the sound of construction as the Devourers rebuilt human technology into something else. "I'm picking up human life signs," Jin-Woo reported, checking his scanner again. 12 people, maybe 15. They're still alive down here. "Survivors. From the station crew?" Jin asked. Kethvar looked at the scanner readings and felt his blood freeze. "No. Look at the pattern. They're not moving randomly. They're working." "Working on what?" "The nursery. The Devourers don't just kill humans. Sometimes they keep them alive and use them. They found the first group of humans in a side chamber that had been converted into some kind of organic factory. 15 people, in dirty clothes, their eyes vacant and glassy, their movements slow and strange. They were tending to rows of egg-like structures that pulsed with their own light. "They've been infected," Kethvar explained quietly. "Devourer parasites in there. Brains. They're still conscious, but they can't control their own actions." One of the infected humans looked up as they passed. She was young, maybe Jin-Woo's age, with blonde hair and blue eyes. When she saw them, she started to cry. "Help me," she whispered. "Please. I can't stop my hands from working. I can't make myself leave." Jin started forward, her medical kit ready, but Dae-Ho stopped her. "Can you remove the parasites?" he asked. Jin examined the woman from a distance, using her scanner. Her face went very pale. "Not without killing her. The parasites have grown into her brain tissue. Surgery would be impossible." "How long do they have?" Dae-Ho asked. "Hours. Maybe less. The parasites will consume their brains completely." The infected woman was still crying, still begging for help. Behind her, the other infected humans continued their work, tending to alien eggs that would soon hatch into more devourers. Kethvar waited for the humans to find another solution. To use their medical knowledge or their clever technology to save these people. To refuse to accept that some problems had no good answers. Instead, Dae-Ho walked up to the crying woman and spoke to her very quietly. "What's your name?" "Sarah," she whispered. "My name is Sarah Chen. I'm a xenobiologist. I study alien life forms. I never meant for this to happen." "I know," Dae-Ho said gently. "It's not your fault. I can feel it in my head, moving around, making me do things. But I can still think. I can still remember my family. Is that worse? Being aware while it happens?" Dae-Ho took out his sidearm and checked the power setting. "I don't know. But I can make it stop." Sarah nodded, still crying. "Will you tell my parents I tried to fight it?" "Yes." "Will you make it quick?" "Yes." Dae-Ho shot her once in the head. She fell quietly, and the alien egg she had been tending began to wither without her care. Then he walked to the next infected human, and the next, and the next. Each time, he spoke quietly with them. Each time they thanked him. Each time he pulled the trigger without hesitation. 15 people. 15 individual conversations. 15 careful shots. When it was over, Daeho reloaded his weapon and continued toward the reactor room as if nothing had happened. Kethvar stared at him. "How can you do that?" "Do what?" "Kill innocent people. People who were just doing their jobs." Daeho stopped walking and looked back at him. "They weren't people anymore. They were weapons the Devourers were using against us. Leaving them alive would have been cruel. But they were still conscious. Still human. Yes. That's what made it horrible. But horrible and necessary aren't opposites." They reached the reactor room an hour later. The massive fusion reactor was still operational, but the Devourers had begun modifying it. Organic growths covered the control panels. Strange new conduits led away toward other parts of the station. "They're converting it into a power source." "For the nursery," Boram said, studying the alien modifications. "Give me 30 minutes and I can set up an overload that will take out half the system." "You don't have 30 minutes, Jinwoo reported. "Motion sensors show Devourers converging on this location, a lot of them." "How many?" Daeho asked. "All of them." The scratching sounds were getting louder. Something was coming through the walls. Themselves, not just the corridors. The station's new organic structure was alive, and it knew they were here. "New plan," Daeho said. "Boram, how fast can you rig something?" 5 minutes for a basic overload. But I'll have to stay here to trigger it manually. Do it. As Boram began working on the reactor controls, the first Devourers broke through the walls. These were not the larvae or even the adults they had fought before. These were something new, bigger and stranger, with too many teeth and eyes that glowed in the dark. The battle that followed was unlike anything Kethvar had ever experienced. The humans fought not to win, but to buy time. They used every trick they knew, every piece of equipment they carried, every drop of skill they had learned. Hai-Jin injected herself with something from her medical kit that made her hands move, faster than humanly possible. Jinwoo fired his weapon until it overheated, then switched to a backup, then to a third. Daeho threw himself between the Devourers and Boram, taking wounds that should have killed him, but refusing to fall down. And, through it all, Boram worked calmly on the reactor, her hands steady even as explosions shook the room around her. "Done," she announced. "Overload set for 10 minutes, but someone has to stay here and make sure the Devourers don't shut it down." She looked at her teammates with calm eyes. "It's been an honor serving with you." Kethvar realized that this small, quiet human was about to die. She had just sentenced herself to death, and she was smiling about it. "There has to be another way," he said desperately. Boram shook her head. "This is the way." As the others began to retreat toward the exit, fighting their way through waves of Devourers, Kethvar looked back one last time. Boram was sitting by the reactor controls, her rifle across her lap, calmly waiting for the explosion that would kill her and save 3 worlds. She waved goodbye. In that moment, Kethvar finally understood what made humans so terrifying. They loved so deeply that they would die for strangers. They cared so much about tomorrow that they would give up all their tomorrows to protect it. They were not just warriors or soldiers or fighters. They were gardeners with guns, willing to pull any weed that threatened their garden, even if the weed was themselves. The explosion never came. Kethvar and the surviving humans reached their ship and waited. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15. The reactor should have detonated by now, taking the station and everything on it into a nuclear fireball. Instead, they received a communication from Boram. The Devourers shut down the overload. Her voice crackled through the static. They're smarter than we thought. They've got some kind of organic computer system controlling the reactor now. Can you restart the sequence? Deho asked. Not from here. They've locked me out of the system. But there's something else. Something you need to see. The video feed from Bo-Ram's helmet showed the reactor room, but it was completely transformed. The walls were covered with a network of veins and nerves that pulsed with energy. At the center of it all was something that might have once been human. The Brood Queen, Bo-Ram whispered. She's not just controlling the station, she's become part of it. The thing in the center of the room was massive, easily 20 feet tall, with too many arms and a face that was almost human but wrong in every detail. Tubes and cables connected her to the reactor, to the walls, to everything around her. She was the station now. I can still trigger an overload, Bo-Ram continued, but I'll have to do it manually, and I'll have to get past her first. Through the video feed, they watched as the Brood Queen turned toward Bo-Ram. When she spoke, her voice came through their communication system like nails on metal. Small, human. You think to harm my nursery? Your nursery is going to consume 3 planets, Bo-Ram replied calmly. I can't allow that. The Queen laughed, a sound like breaking glass. You cannot stop what has already begun. My children will spread across this system like a beautiful infection. They will consume everything that lives and make it part of something greater. Maybe, Bo-Ram said. But not today. She started walking toward the Queen, her rifle ready. Dozens of adult devourers moved to intercept her, but Bo-Ram had one more trick. She activated something on her belt, and suddenly she was moving faster than the camera could follow. Combat stimulants, Heijin explained quietly. They'll triple her speed and strength for about 10 minutes. Then they'll kill her. On the video feed, they watched Bo-Ram fight her way through creatures that should have been impossible for a human to defeat. She moved like liquid lightning, her rifle firing continuously, her movements too fast for the devourers to track. But the stimulants were not the only thing killing her. The Queen was fighting back, sending waves of energy through the stations. Organic network. With each pulse, Bo-Ram slowed down a little more. The parasites, Deho realized. She's trying to infect Bo-Ram through the air itself. I can feel them, Bo-Ram reported. Little worms trying to get into my brain. But I've got something for that, too. She pulled out a syringe and injected herself with something that made her scream in pain. When she spoke again, her voice was different, harder. Neural blockers, she explained. They'll keep the parasites out of my brain. They'll also shut down my nervous system in about 5 minutes. But 5 minutes should be enough. Kethvar watched in horror as the small human fought her way closer to the Brood Queen. She was dying with every step, but she never slowed down, never hesitated. She had calculated exactly how much of her life she could spend and still complete. Her mission. Why? The Queen demanded. Why do you sacrifice yourself for creatures you have never met? Because that's what humans do, Bo-Ram replied simply. She reached the reactor controls, but the Queen was waiting for her. Massive claws swept down, tearing through Bo-Ram's armor like paper. Blood splattered across the camera. You are dying, little human. Your chemicals cannot save you from my children. Bo-Ram looked up at the Queen with eyes that were already going dim. I don't need to be saved. I just need to last 5 more minutes. She started working on the reactor controls with hands that were shaking from the stimulants and the neural blockers and the poison in her blood. The Queen struck her again and again, but Bo-Ram kept working. Through their communications, they could hear her counting down. 4 minutes. 3 minutes. 2 minutes. Boram, Deho said quietly. Thank you. 1 minute. Tell my little brother I kept my promise, Boram whispered. Tell him his big sister saved the day. 30 seconds. The Queen realized what was happening and began tearing at the reactor controls with desperate fury. But it was too late. Boram had done something that even the alien technology could not undo. 10 seconds. Boram, Heijin said. We love you. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The explosion lit up the entire system. The research station, the Brood Queen, and 17 Devourer ships vanished in a ball of nuclear fire that could be seen from 3 planets away. The blast wave destroyed everything within 100 kilometers. Boram was gone, but 3 worlds, full of people, would wake up tomorrow because of what she had done. In the quiet aftermath, as their ship limped toward the nearest Alliance base, Kethvar tried to understand what he had witnessed. The humans sat in silence, mourning their friend. No victory celebrations, no war songs, just quiet grief for someone who had given everything. How do you live with it? He asked Deho. Live with what? Knowing that any day, any mission, you might have to die for strangers. Deho thought about it for a long time. We don't think about it that way. We think about all the people who get to live because we did our jobs. But you'll never see them. Never know their names. Never know if they were worth saving. They're all worth saving, Heijin said quietly. Every single one. Jinwoo, who had been silent since Boram's death, finally spoke up. My little sister is 8 years old. She likes to draw pictures of flowers and dogs. She's never hurt anyone. In her entire life, if something threatened her, I'd want someone like Boram to be there, someone who cared enough to fight. And if there was no Boram, Kethvar asked, then I'd want someone like me. Captain Subin came down from the bridge to join them. She was holding a small package. Boram asked me to give this to her brother if anything happened, she said. It's a music box. She bought it for his birthday next month. Kethvar looked at the music box and felt something break inside his chest. This small, simple gift represented everything he found terrifying about humans. They loved so deeply, so completely, that they would die for strangers and still remember to buy birthday presents. I don't understand your species, he said. We don't always understand ourselves, Deho replied, but we know what we're fighting for. What? Tuesday. As their ship traveled through space toward home, Kethvar began writing his report for the Vorthak High Command. But how could he explain what he had seen? How could he describe creatures who fought like machines but loved like poets? Who calculated the value of their own lives and decided other people mattered more? In the end, he wrote only one line that seemed to capture the truth. The day I faced true horror was when I fought alongside humans. They are gardeners who have learned to be very, very good at killing weeds. We should pray we never become what they need protection from. He sealed the report and sent it to his commanders. Then he sat back and tried not to think about Boram's music box, or Deho's letter to his wife, or the way Jinwoo had joked even while preparing to die. The humans were already planning their next mission, already calculating what they might need to sacrifice, already preparing to pay whatever price was necessary to protect their Tuesday. They scared him more than any monster ever could, and he was proud to serve alongside them. Outside the ship's windows, the stars looked different. Now, each point of light might be home to billions of people living ordinary lives, having ordinary problems, loving ordinary things. And somewhere out there, humans were standing guard, ready to die for strangers they would never meet. The universe was a safer place because of creatures who fought for the right to fix broken windows and buy birthday presents and have dinner with their families, even if it was the most terrifying thing Kethvar had ever learned.